Okay, I thought this could be a fun idea for a video. I don't know why. I don't know if it's going to be a series or anything, just a random idea I had. Let's put all these teams into tiers. Why don't we? I figured it'd be kind of a fun way to give my thoughts on where I evaluate these teams. Typically, I don't do that as much. My only power ranking show I have, I don't even pick where the teams rank. It's sort of an analytical driven thing with an algorithm. So I figured this could be fun. You know how tier rankings work. I don't have to explain it anymore. Let's just get into it. So we're starting off with the bad tier. I should mention there's 6 total tiers. It's going to be bad, plucky, dark horse playoff team, dark horse, and then dark horse contender, and then true contender. Those are the 6. We're starting off with bad. There's 4 teams here. I didn't make a limit on how many teams there could be. I just, made the categories and then put each team where I saw fit. There's still things to like about each of these 4 teams. The Steelers, okay, well, maybe at least 3 out of 4 teams. No, I mean, the Steelers, it's coaching, right? And they still do have some players. Again, Texans are definitely kind of they're struggling a bit. Their defense has shown flashes at times. The Bears, Justin Fields has shown flashes at times. The running game is effective, but that's kind of all they have going for them. And again, the Lions have some stars on offense, but that's kind of all they have going for them. So there's no trash team, I feel like. I almost made the bottom category trash, but I realized I wouldn't put any teams there, maybe, except for Houston, maybe. But I feel like all these teams have some stuff, but they're not great teams. These are teams that I consider bad. Next, we have the plucky teams. Shout out to my podcast co-host Kyle for he's the first guy I've seen consistently use the word plucky, so now I'm using it. It's a fun word. You have the Raiders, the Jaguars, the Cardinals, and the Browns. These are teams that I really don't see making the playoffs just where they're at. I'd be really shocked if they turn it around and do make the playoffs. The one you could maybe talk me into was the Cardinals. I think I originally had the Cardinals as a dark horse playoff team, but I moved them down. I get it. The DeAndre Hopkins stuff does make this offense better, but it still feels like they're a team of a couple of superstars trying to drag a bad roster to the playoffs. So they're the one you could probably talk me into being at a higher level. The Raiders have talent, but I mean, man, how can you feel good about them at all, given what we just saw out of the Saints? I don't see how you can do that. The Jaguars are another team where it's like, I don't know, they got off to a hot start. They had a couple of nice wins, but as a whole, they're just far too inconsistent. And the Browns, again, maybe with Deshaun Watson, they feel differently. There still is some nice things on this team. These are teams that I feel like but I wouldn't be shocked if they, are competitive against anybody. We saw the Raiders nearly beat the Chiefs, but they're not winning consistently enough. Now, the dark horse playoff team. This is by far the biggest category here. We have 9 teams here, including 3 teams in the NFC South have made it here. Also, I totally just realized I did not put the Panthers on this list. That's my bad. They're in the bad tier as well, I would say. They have a nice defense. Maybe you could talk me into plucky with them, but they're still, again, there's things to like about them, but they're not winning football games. But yeah, the dark horse playoff teams, you have the, at the top. So again, to me, dark horse playoff teams, one thing I have to note, because there's one team that those fans are probably going to be mad at, this is just how I feel about how you are as a team. It doesn't mean that you can't, you might, at least 1 or 2 of these teams, I feel like are, one of these teams is definitely going to make the playoffs, but it's just more of that's how I feel about you, is you're a team that has a chance to make the playoffs caliber of team. The Colts and Broncos are 2 teams that are very similar, almost the exact same. I think the Colts, I considered putting them in plucky, but I just felt like I thought they looked better with Sam Ehlinger out there, and that's enough for me to feel like, okay, well, I could see them having a chance. I'm not picking them to make the playoffs, but I can see it. Same thing with the Broncos. It's like Russell Wilson did kind of start to look alive, so I can see them as a team that has a chance, even though they have been losing games. The Giants I do have here. I know, Giants fans, go ahead. Get mad at me. I get it, because you have been winning a bunch of games. I just haven't loved how you've done it. And listen, who cares, right? Your goal is not to make me like how you win football games. Your goal is to win football games, and they're doing that. So they're doing the right thing. I just personally feel like I just feel like I don't trust this passing attack at all. And to really, I think to be a serious, just a straight up playoff team, you typically have to throw the ball well. And to be a good playoff team, you typically have to throw the ball well. Their defense hasn't even been incredible. I think they've just been well coached and gotten a little lucky to get to where their record is. They have an easy schedule. They're for sure going to make the playoffs. I'm just not huge on how I view this team. I don't just look at records and say, okay, well, that's how I view you. I look at, how are your players playing? What is your team doing as a whole? And the way I evaluate and what I value, they have not been overly successful at. So that's why I have them in this tier. But again, I get it. You're winning games. Who cares what I think? You have the Balls. That's the Washington football team here who originally I had them at Plucky, but I'm like, they're 4-4. They're winning games. Taylor Heineke is fine. He's not great, but you have Terry McLaurin who's winning them games all by himself, it seems. So you kind of have to put him in this tier, I think. We didn't have I'll talk about the Rams, Falcons, and Buccaneers all together here. If we just look at the sample size of this season with those three teams, they clearly should probably be worse than a dark horse playoff team. They should probably be in the Plucky category, but we do have a bigger sample size of them. We have seen more than just those three, than just these 8 games with those teams. So because of that, I am willing to say, you know what, there's a chance you guys could squeak in. I feel like one of those teams is probably going to get it together, at least. Maybe all 3 of them are going to get it together to some degree. So that's why I have them here. But yeah, definitely a rough season for them. Also, the Falcons and Saints I have here as well. Falcons, plenty of stuff to like, but again, one of these teams is going to make the playoffs. I have all 4 of the NFC South teams outside of the playoff team tier, so obviously one of you is going to make it. But, Falcons defense has been a mess. The commentator called it a good defense on the broadcast, which just blew my mind. I don't know what you're doing. Clearly, it's not been a good defense. The offense has definitely shown flashes. And then again, the defense has star players who can make plays. That's what they have. But as a whole, they need to get more consistency. I still feel like this Falcons team is probably a year away. The Saints have been very up and down, but if you can get steady play from Andy Dalton, they could absolutely win the NFC South. I totally think it's possible. I still feel like they're better than their record of 3-5, but don't quite have them at the playoff team tier yet. Let's talk about the playoff team tier now. Just as it worked out, I happen to have 14 teams that are playoff team or higher. I didn't intentionally do it that way. It just worked out that way. Although 9 AFC teams, only 5 NFC teams. So obviously, again, just because you're in the playoff team tier does not mean you will make the playoffs. At least 2 of these teams that are here or above will not, because they are in the AFC. First, Jets and Patriots, who, played each other. The Patriots were able to win. The Jets have a, good defense, good running game, but Zach Wilson's, he had some good games. Like, I feel like, again, there's some revisionist history. He did play well to start the season. He was really bad against the Patriots. He just was. He made some just brutally bad plays. And for the Patriots, they've also been a bit, up and down this season that loss to the Bears was tough. They really struggle against rushing quarterbacks, but they don't struggle against guys who are throwing. And that's one of the things they do very well, is the way they piece together all this coverage has been fantastic. So I think that they need to get their offense going. My podcast co-host Kyle said it perfectly. If everything just looks tough for this offense, it does. But there's still things that they're doing well, so I have them as a playoff team. The Chargers I also have here, which, some injuries to the offense I think has hurt them a little bit. I still don't love their defense either, but you have a star quarterback. The defense, has guys who can make plays. It's not ideal, but it's okay. And again, you get a little healthier on offense. That's what I think they can do. They're an offensive-built team. They should be in the playoff team tier, but just not too much higher than that. You also have the Titans, who, again, listen, Derrick Henry running hard and a good defense with Ryan Tannehill, who I know didn't play last week, but him just doing the right stuff, that'll get you into the playoffs. You could argue they should be a dark horse contender. I didn't quite put them that high. I need to see it a little bit more, I think. I know it was really a 2-score win against the Texans, but still, overall a 7-point victory. Their defense looked so good in that game, and I know that Malik Willis was there, so paying attention to that game itself maybe is too hard. But in general, I still think I've seen the offense kind of not look super great at times this season, but you still have Derrick Henry, still have an elite defense, so they're definitely a playoff team, and you could probably talk me into contending team potentially. The Seahawks I have here. How about these Seattle Seahawks who just keep finding a way to win? Listen, They're getting good quarterback play. They have a good receiving core. That's allowing their offense to be good, and that should be sustainable. Their offensive line's done all right. It's still not spectacular, but it's done all right. And their defense is slowly getting better. So to me, this feels like they are the most playoff team on this list. I feel like they're definitely in the playoff team category. There's no shot that they should be a dark horse contender right now, and there's no shot that they should be a dark horse playoff team. They are clearly a playoff team. They've earned a playoff team. Nothing more, nothing less. Finally, the Minnesota Vikings, who I know, only one loss. How could I only put them in the playoff team category? Listen, as I mentioned with the weak NFC, they could easily end up winning the Super Bowl. I mean, they absolutely could. I only have 3 NFC teams above those teams. So this is very much possible, above the Vikings, excuse me. It's totally possible they could do it. Again, they've looked a bit inconsistent. I think Vikings fans would even tell you that, like, yes, the record is great, but you want to see more consistency out of it. But still, hey, only one loss. Can't complain about that. Finally, the dark horse tier. I should have wrote dark horse contender probably to differentiate dark horse playoff contender versus dark horse championship contender. But these are the teams that I wouldn't be shocked at all if at the end of the season they end up winning the Super Bowl, but I'm also not going out and predicting them to win the Super Bowl right now. They're kind of just on the verge of like Super Bowl teams, maybe have one flaw. Like for the Dolphins, it's their defense. And listen, I criticized their defense on the podcast, and some Dolphins fans were saying, I mean, look at all the injuries, which is fair, and I probably should have brought that up. But still, I mean, you have guys who are healthy who aren't playing well. Like Xavier Howard has had a rough season, and that hurts you. It's like even when you get healthy, like you still need that to improve. So yes, he's had a tough situation on top of it, but the defense as a whole, it needs to get healthy, but it also just needs to start playing better. The guys who are healthy need to start playing better. Both can be true. So I think that both of those are fair, but the offense is so good that they absolutely could win a Super Bowl. Again, these are teams that could win a Super Bowl, I feel like. The 49ers are another team where, I mean, listen, kind of always have to put the 49ers on this list, it feels like, right? Christian McCaffrey has meant a ton to this offense. He's been fantastic. He had a passing, receiving, and rushing touchdown. I'm not sure why the one I forgot was rushing. Yes, those 3, because he is a running back. Great stuff by him. Again, offense just playing at a really high level. Defense, there's still some injuries, and that kind of hurts them a little bit. You still have Jimmy Garoppolo. That I'm still waiting for that. He's played well since becoming the starter again, but there still have been some mishaps. He still did step out of the back of the end zone. So there still is that concern, which is why I don't quite have them in the top tier, but they're close. Finally, the Dallas Cowboys, which I think Cowboys fans will say that I should, I'm disrespecting them. And listen, I was disrespecting them, all season, I feel like. I did not think the Cowboys would be very good. I ran my victory lap after they struggled week 1, and I look dumb now because the Cowboys have been very good this season. They've been winning nonstop. Their defense has looked fantastic. I still, though, again, we're talking about if you're a true contender, I really have to have no flaws with you. That's kind of the way I view it, or very minor flaws with you. I have some flaws with this Cowboys roster. I do. I think that the fact that, I think that their receiving core, it's not bad. The quarterback play, Dak Prescott, he's solid, but it's just like, which one of that is going to become elite come playoff time? Because again, that's typically what you need to win a Super Bowl. You typically need the stat that I bring up is that most teams that win the Super Bowl have there's 3 categories. You need to be a top 7 coverage unit, a top 7 passing unit, or a top 7 receiving unit. You need 2 of those 3 typically. So you don't need all 3. All 3 certainly helps. Those teams almost always make the Super Bowl. But if you have 2 of those 3, that's what can allow you to get to the Super Bowl and potentially win it. The Cowboys, they have the coverage down, absolutely. But which one of the other 2 do they have? Is it going to be receiving, or is it going to be passing? Or are you going to need a little bit of luck and have the other stuff go well to get you to a Super Bowl? Just the way I view football, I think you need to have at least 2 of those 3 to be a true contender. And I just don't think Dallas is quite there just yet, so that's why they're in the dark horse. But again, they're very close to being a true contender. Finally, my 5 true contenders, 4 of which are AFC teams, believe it or not. These are the teams that I feel like if you someone came back from the future and said, hey, one of these 5 teams wins the Super Bowl, I'd say, sure, that makes sense. I mean, not the time travel part, but the fact that they win the Super Bowl. The Bills, of course, Bills and Chiefs, I feel like are obvious. You have Josh Allen, who had a rough day on Sunday Night Football, I thought, but is still playing at a high level, and the Bills probably have a better roster than the Chiefs right now. Mahomes, to me, is my pick for MVP so far, about halfway through the season. Still plenty of time for that to go right or wrong. Those teams, I think, feel obvious. The bottom 3, you could debate. I think the Eagles also, they're undefeated. You have to put them here. We'll talk about them next, even though that's out of order, just because, they're playing great. Jalen Hurts has had a few of these games where he just put up incredible numbers. So, he's another guy in the MVP race, certainly. Those 3 quarterbacks, Allen, Mahomes, and Hurts, all in MVP race. A.J. Brown was amazing in that game, so he's definitely someone who has a chance. The coverage unit has played fantastic with some of these veteran corners really playing good football. So, they're obviously a contender. The 2 you could debate are the Ravens and Bengals, who I decided to put here. I think the Ravens is probably going to be the hottest take here, which, again, you could probably talk me into them being a dark horse. I was really on the fence about them in Dallas. I was really like, should they be true contender or dark horse? I can't really decide. I decided true contender for them because, again, like I talked about, what you need the top 7 at 2 of those things. I think their coverage is getting to be that great coverage unit again. It hasn't looked like that, but it looked good against the Buccaneers. Guys were not getting open, so you're starting to look better in that area. And also, Lamar's, I think, Lamar is definitely a top 7 quarterback. He's playing like a top 7 quarterback, I think. So you have that. So that's kind of what you need. And again, they are such a unicorn with how they run their offense, but their offense was, it can get to really high heights, and, they have 3 losses on their record, but all 3 of them were really just chokes by them. It seems like the only team that can beat the Ravens is the Ravens, but they keep beating themselves. So that's the biggest issue. So you could flop them in Dallas if you want to. I wouldn't fight you on it too much. The Bengals, the last team to talk about, again, playing really good football right now. They played tonight, so maybe I'll look stupid in, I think this happened last week where I made a different kind of power rankings on Monday, and then right off the bat, the Patriots looked very good, and then they got smoked by the Bears. So it's kind of the way it works. I could wait till Tuesday, but I like to make them now because all 22 footage comes out Tuesday. That's when I can make those all 22 film studies. But yeah, I mean, the Bengals, listen, passing the Jamar Chase stuff hurts, but he will be healthy again come playoff time. So it's not devastating. It just kind of sucks. The record isn't what you want it to be, but again, defense is playing a lot better. Joe Burrow is playing unreal football right now. Another guy who, if he didn't have that bad start to the season, he's probably in the MVP race. The receiving core, we know that's great. So when I talk about the top 7 stuff in those 3 categories, the Bengals might be top 7 and all 3 come the end of the season. And if that's the case, this is definitely a true contender. So yeah, those are my tiers. I know this stuff always creates some people yelling, some people getting annoyed, but again, it's just my opinion on it. And you could probably bump any of these teams up 1 tier or down 1 tier. I wouldn't fight you on it too much. Just kind of giving you guys thoughts on, how I view this stuff. So yeah, let me know, where do you disagree in the comments below? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.